You ever have one of those things where you're visiting like a new town or something you've never been to, and everything just feels so foreign, and the people are just so different than where you're from? You're like, God, all these people just seem crazy, but all those people act like you are crazy? Well, I think this might have happened to Blake Crouch before, too. Hey, what's up, bookworms? Mike back with another Blake Crouch review. This time we're talking about the Wayward Pines Trilogy. This is, of course, going to be Pines from 2012, Wayward from 2013, and, of course, The Last Town from 2014. These are the 10th, 11th, and 12th books released by Blake Crouch, but these are kind of the ones that put him on the map right before he exploded with Dark Matter in 2016. Now look, this series was very popular. This was the first series that he sold over 1 million copies of. Really is the one that meant that he was here to stay as a New York Times bestselling author. And this series got so popular, guys, that they did make an adaptation. Season 1 of the show on Fox, Wayward Pines, did adapt the entire trilogy, and I think it did so much better than they were expecting. Then they kind of started doing some little fan fiction and doing their own thing, done by M. Night Shyamalan, by the way. And this story has a twist in it that I'm sure got his attention because, yeah, that's about all I'll say, guys. This will be spoiler free because I do want you guys to read this when I talk about it, but I will be talking about the trilogy as a whole instead of each individual book because you cannot talk about books 2 and 3 without spoiling everything that's going on with the mysteries of this book, and I don't want to do that for you. But before we get into the usual, guys, let's talk about what this book is about. Now, a Secret Service agent, Ethan Burke, arrives in Wayward Pines, Idaho. He's got a clear mission: locate and recover 2 federal agents who went missing in the town 1 month earlier. But within minutes of his arrival, Ethan is involved in a violent car accident. He comes to in a hospital with no ID, no cell phone, no briefcase. The medical staff seems friendly enough, but something feels a bit off. As the days pass, Ethan's investigation to the disappearance of his colleagues turns up more questions than answers. Why can't he get any phone calls through to his wife and son outside of town? Why doesn't anyone believe he is who he says he is? And what is the purpose of this electrified fence surrounding the town? Are they meant to keep residents in, or are they keeping something else out? Each step closer to the truth takes Ethan further from the world he thought he knew, from the man he thought he was, until he must face a horrifying fact that he may never get out of Wayward Pines alive. Guys, 2012 through 2014, this is the Wayward Pines Trilogy. Now we're going to do like usual, guys. We're going to talk about what makes it good or bad. Now, if you followed the channel at all since October when I read these, you know that I love this a lot. So there's going to be a lot of good to talk about here. Again, I just want to say that Crouch continues to absolutely crush it for me as an author. This is everything I've been looking for in just kind of the thriller author since Michael Crichton passed away in 2008. I've been very excited with this discovery. Again, I don't feel like this is some rare find. I didn't find some diamond in the rough. This guy is a big name. So I don't want to kind of hype that up as I'm like, hey, you got to give this a chance, because I felt like I was one of the last people to give him a chance. But with this story, just like with Dark Matter, just like with Recursion, it's just lightning fast pacing. It never, ever drags. Not a single time. I don't feel like there's a single wasted paragraph in this entire trilogy. There's not one subplot where you feel like that could have been cut out. Everything matters. It is straight meat and potatoes, guys. There is no filler in any of his 5 books that I've read so far. And this, in many ways that even Recursion and Dark Matter didn't, it feels more complete, I think, because there is a bigger cast than those books have. And it's amazing how fast-paced this continues to be, and you never ever feel like the point like, okay, I gotta slow down a little bit. Nothing like that. But it also feels like, well, I gotta find out what's gonna happen next. You always hear people say, hey, this was a real page turner, and you get to it and you're like, not really. I can stop whenever I want. This actually it's hard to put down. And I challenge you to finish book 1 and not immediately pick up book 2, or finish book 2 not immediately pick up book 3, or finish book 3 and be like, no, I want more. Because that's how good this is, and it's because the pacing continues to just be absolutely perfect, I think. And I think even more so than Recursion, which I said Recursion just felt like a mile a minute. And this one, I think I read all 3 of these as fast as I read Recursion, which is just crazy. Now, with those other books, I think you might be a little confused on the science or whatever. He doesn't really do the science as much in this as he does in those books, but what he does in these better than those is the mystery. I felt like in Recursion and Dark Matter, you kind of understood what was going on. It was how do we fix it? With this, it's like, I don't know what's going on, and I've got enough hooks. I want to know more. And he's giving me a little bit of time, but every answer I get 2 more questions. Very, very good pacing that way, and how he keeps you guessing on the answers for this. And it was one of those that I was guessing up until the end, guys, and I didn't really ever figure it out because he does the mystery so well. And I think with this is it very much feels like, and I hate to do it, it's blank meets blank, but very much, imagine if Mulder and Scully from the X-Files, they were visiting Twin Peaks in an episode of The Twilight Zone. Does that make sense? Probably not, but I really get that feel for all of them. It's like it's not quite as quirky as Twin Peaks. It's not quite as out there as a Twilight Zone. It's not quite as conspiratorial as the X-Files, but it's a good blending of all 3. I really feel like you get a lot of those familiar beats. It does feel like it could have been an episode of the X-Files somewhere, and it's just done so well. I really, if it's an homage to any of those, I think it is. I'm pretty sure that Blake Crouch has said that Twin Peaks was his inspiration for this, but again, I always look at Twin Peaks as, look, it was a serious show, but it had a lot of quirkiness to it, had a lot of fun stuff in it, as well as the the mystery and the dark content, whatever. This doesn't really quite have that humor, but it does have that kind of creepy town with a lot of hidden secrets. What I think he does well here is he does a great job of expanding this town and its residents, almost kind of in that Needful Things kind of way that Stephen King did, in that you've got this big town, and he's going to have to introduce a lot of characters, and you never once are confused about who is who and who has beef with who and who has a history with that person. He does a good job kind of making you remember who each one of these characters are. He doesn't just throw them all at you at once, turn a blender on, you got to figure out, because you're never going to be like, wait, who is this? You're never going to do that, because I feel like he differentiates his characters enough that you know who is who is in charge of what, and who would be doing what in this situation. He continues to do that very well. And again, he doesn't have a cast that's big in his other 2 books that I've read, so I'm impressed that he's able to do this. And I feel like, okay, if he wrote Recursion and Dark Matter after this, I was like, okay, he really got the focus way down, putting such smaller cast. Now that I know he can do a cast this large, I'm very excited to see if he ever visits this again, because I do feel like he is a better writer, in those other 2 books, but it's not like he's suffering here. So when you're going reverse chronological with an author, of course you're going to say, oh, well, the writing isn't as good as the previous one, because most authors do get better. They do learn from their mistakes and stuff. And I never have any problems with his writing in this, but again, reading it backwards, you're going to kind of notice some things. You'll be like, he did that better in Dark Matter. He did that better in Recursion. That might happen a little to you if you're reading them out of order like I have. I think something else that makes this really special is I feel like all 3 books could be classified as different genre. I feel like they do change as it goes along. And a big part of it is this mystery. You do get the answer to the big mystery towards the end of book number 1, and then it completely flips the genre on its head. And you're like, oh, I wasn't expecting that. And here's the thing about that mystery is you're going to keep guessing up until the final revelation, and you're more than likely going to be wrong. I was way off. I mean, I had so many. I think one of the greatest joys on Discord this year was watching everyone else read this after I did and seeing their guesses leading up to it. And it's just like, oh, you guys are adorable. But some of those series are really, really good. So, yeah, it keeps you guessing right up to the end. You're going to probably be wrong. But, yeah, it's a great twist. And it turns the whole series on its head, but it continues to be great. That's what's impressive about it, is you can do something like that. You can have that M. Night Shyamalan kind of twist, but it actually lands. It doesn't feel like it's doing it just for the sake of doing it. It actually felt like it was earned, it was deserved, and you have no problems, buying in on it. So I know a lot of people will be like, whoa, so at the end of book 1 you figure everything out? No, you don't figure everything out. You figure one thing out, and then you get a lot more. Like I said, guys, this is onions. You're peeling these layers here. You get one, answer. You're getting 2 more questions, and you're going to keep doing that until the final pages of The Last Town. But it does a really great job of something, a storytelling trope I really, really like. And this is from all those years of, reading like Poe and Lovecraft and maybe watching Twilight Zone, of things of questioning, okay, is this actually happening? Is the protagonist insane? Is he making this up? Is this just all in his head? Is he in a loony bin somewhere in a straitjacket, and this is just something he's doing to project? I think that I'm not going to answer that for you, but you will ask yourself more than once, what if everyone in this town is right and you're the crazy one? You know, that's kind of something I think it does a great job of making you question for a long time. You know, even after that big revelation, I think you do still have some questions about Ethan. And I think it's just because he is a very, very layered character. And I think the way it peels away at it over the course of the story is very, very well done. And there's a handful of fantastic villains in this. There really is. But I don't want to say who they are because it's a mystery at first of who the villains are. And I don't want to ruin that for you. But I just know there are some big ones, and they're very, very well done. And there is one, I always say if there's a primary antagonist here, it's one of those, what I love is when a villain is one of those things where it's not like a James Bond villain, you're just evil for evil's sake. It's one of those where you can take a look back and be like, you know, I kind of see where they're coming from, and I don't necessarily think that they're wrong. It's just one of those things like, you know, even if you can, should you? You know, and there is a lot of Dr. Ian Malcolm, Jurassic Park kind of thing in here, and he even quotes Dr. Malcolm in this book a couple of times. At the end, there is a passage from Jurassic Park by Michael Crichton, and I think you'll understand why when you get towards the end of it. So it's really good stuff, guys. And I'm always going to make that Crichton comparison now with Crouch, and it's easy to see. Yes, he was very heavily influenced by Michael Crichton, and that's just awesome for me. I've been looking for that author, like I said, since 2008, so I'm happy that I feel like I've kind of found it. But look, there is drama, there is romance in this, but I wouldn't say it's quite to the point of Recursion or Dark Matter, where that was kind of a driving force of the story was the romance. Never do I feel like that's really the primary thing here. The primary goal is what is going on in this town. How did we get here? How do we get out of it kind of situation? Much more than, oh, well, what am I going to do if I lose this person? Never really feels like that at all. But there is some romance involved, and I feel like, you know, a couple of them are pretty good. You know, there's a couple of them that are pretty good. Some of them, not so much. Now, look, it's going to be hard to top Dark Matter or Recursion's romance for me. I feel like both of those are really, really well done. But this book doesn't really need to do that, I don't think. But again, guys, this is a super fast read. You can read all three of them in a week easily. I mean, I was working full-time and doing this full-time, and I read all three of them in a week. So I think that you can do it as well. Very, very short. I mean, look at this as like one book, I think, in there. You got a normal-sized book for Blake Crouch, but even then, they're going to go by like that. You're going to just fly right through them. Now, if there's a bad here, like I said already, you know, the romance isn't exactly going to draw anybody in. I don't think it's ever going to be to a point where you feel, you know, kind of cringy about it. It's just you might be a little indifferent on it, but I don't think that this story really relies on it very much. So if you hate those things, you're probably going to have a more negative reaction to it than you would if you need those things in your story. Yeah, you're probably going to struggle some with the kind of the relationships in this book, because I think that they're very real. They don't really come from a place of, you know, idealism. They're very much okay, this is struggling, you know, how do we make this work kind of way, more so than a how do we stay together forever, you know. I think the biggest thing here is if that twist at the end of book one, if it doesn't work for you, you're going to struggle with books 2 and 3, because it does really flip the genre on its head, like I said. But again, if that first big twist, if you're like, oh God, no, you might want to go ahead and tap out. I mean, I wouldn't. I don't see how you wouldn't like it. But you know what? It might go into one of those genres that I talk about where I feel like there's 3 different genres for the story. One of them might be one you don't like, you know, and you got to kind of adjust, or you might struggle a little bit with it. And me, I was fine with it. I would say, I mean, look, I have a favorite, a least favorite of the series, but I think all 3 are great. I mean, Pines is my favorite because just that mystery leading up to it was just awesome, you know. But I really flip a coin between 2 and 3 for me on which one I liked more than the other one. I thought those were kind of on par, but Pines was far and away my favorite of the 3. But I love all 3 of them, guys, and I think that you will too. Just be expecting that there are going to be changes along the way. Don't be thinking the first 100 pages is a representative as a whole for the series, outside of just how fast-paced and well-written that it is. But I will not lie, the ending might leave you wanting more. Now, look, I think it's a satisfying ending. It's a closed-off ending, but it does leave room for, if he ever wanted to revisit this universe, he can. So that might be some people, I don't know. I feel like just like with Dark Matter and just like with Recursion, it kind of leaves that open ending to where he could return, much less than a, figure it out for yourself kind of thing. Dark Matter maybe a little more than this, because Dark Matter really was ambiguous, whereas this, I feel like it has an ending. It just left it kind of open for interpretation a little bit. So I know that bugs some people. They need more finality in their endings. But again, I think that you'll be satisfied. It does feel like a closed off ending. And again, if he wants to return to it, hey, that wouldn't be a bad thing in my opinion. But let's talk about why you should read it, guys. Look, if you like dark matter and recursion and you like that pacing, you're going to be right at home here because it continues that super fast pacing. But look, it's a great way to split up epic fantasy reads. You're looking for something to cleanse that palate. This is perfect. Best I've found since Michael Crichton for this. And I think that it's always going to be something that you're not going to have a hard time getting into. You're not going to have to be super invested in characters and lands and lore and all that stuff. It obviously will help you, reset the cache a little bit if you're reading like big old Malazan bricks or something, every couple of years. But if you're a real big fan of X-Files and a big fan of like a Twilight Zone, I think you're going to love this. It's going to be exactly what you've been looking for. And if you thought that maybe dark matter and recursion were a little too reliant on the science, this one does that a lot less. This might be the Blake Crouch that you've been looking for. Now look, there are some things in there, but you're never going to get into like quantum mechanics and stuff like that. It's never going to make your brain hurt like recursion had the ability to do for some people, where recursion, it was like that thing where you could look at it and you'd be like, okay, I get what he's trying to say. It just makes my brain hurt to think about it, and much less than like, where I just don't understand it. But this does have some stuff in it that will make you stop for a second and be like, okay, well, this means this. You will have to use some brain power, you guys, but not in the way you did with those two books. I think that you can slide into this one relatively easy, especially if science was your least favorite class in school. But the final thoughts here, guys, like Blake Crouch just continues to just be awesome. I can't believe this. Just 5 books now, and as I keep putting it, I have capital L loved all 5 books that I've read so far. I think John Gwynne was the last one to go 5 for 5 for me like this right away. So I'm very excited. I feel like this has made him an automatic author for me. No matter what he puts out now, I'm going to be a day one reader, or I'm going to be bugging the publisher, to give me a review copy because I want to talk about it rather early. So no matter what he puts out, like I said, Upgrade, I'm going to be reading this. What is it? Come out in July. I'm reading that day one when it comes out. And I hate to keep using this name with you guys, but you guys know I love Michael Crichton, and I feel like I finally have that replacement for Crichton that I've been looking for since 2008. The guy that's going to replace the legend for me, or at least carry on that legacy. A guy who can just be the quick one-off, I used to get a new Crichton book and I would get it and just devour it in a night or two. I would just devour that bad boy. And I feel like I've done that with all these Blake Crouch books so far. So it's just bringing back those warm nostalgic feelings for me of, how much I've missed that author and I've needed that. So I finally feel like I've got something to replace that. Is he going to keep carrying that on? I mean, I hope. That's all I can do. I feel like that's a really high bar for him. That's my second favorite author of all time. But again, that just shows I can't give a higher compliment, really. I guess I could if I said he's as good as Stephen King. I guess I could say that. But I plan to go back and read even more of his works now. I got this one planned sometime, I think in February or March. I'm going to be reading Abandon. So I'm going to continue to read his backlog now because these 5 books have been so great. And Wayward Pines, I think, is a great launching point for anyone. If you haven't read any Blake Crouch yet, you're going to find plenty to like. It's got mystery, it's got intrigue, it's got drama, it's got espionage, it's got just about everything you're looking for. It's got a little bit of science fiction in there, guys. So a little bit of whatever you're looking for, I think you're going to find it here. And you're going to be very happy. And I think that you guys will just love it. So big recommend for me when it comes to the Wayward Pines trilogy. That is Pines, that is Wayward, and that is The Last Town. So guys, have you read it? What did you think? Did you guys watch the adaptation? Because I was watching it and I think I made to about episode 4 where I just started flipping tables because they started changing things. But that's about as far as I made it. But hey, if that's the only reason that you're here, you're interested in reading it because you like that show, I think that you could do that and be quite happy, because at least you'll have some faces to put with some of the names, even if the story does get a little different. So guys, have you read it? Let me know. Drop in the comments and I will talk to you there.